way, huh? Oh, the hair looks ugly. I feel so long. Okay. So this should be over here. About right. That's pretty close. Oh. I was worried when I. Let's see how
By the way, just so you know, we
Ah.
cut a pretty screaming deal on that Looney Tunes.
Okay. Interesting. If I just move a single thing back and forth, it has no trouble keeping up the algorithm, the bandwidth. But if I move my whole body where a whole lot of stuff is moving at once, apparently the algorithm has trouble. So, anyhow, that looks pretty well. Do they actually have that, Chris, or is that just a joke? It wouldn't surprise me. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I say, do they actually have like a deal where you buy extra bandwidth and stuff? It would make sense. They want to make a buck everywhere they can. Oh, let's see. I don't think if people really need extra pixels per second watching me. Oh, ouch. Snap, crackle, pop. Huh. Well, it makes sense because they have a lot of people, that run podcasts and stuff that make a lot of money and stuff. So that would make sense. Hey, honey bunny, how's it going? Thank you for sending me that video the other day. Oh my goodness. Snap, crackle, pop. Yeah, old geezers. You got that right. Anyhow, we got a number of different things this live stream here. The one where was it the guy with the mine that he's doing mentioned my panning technique that he was using, which it was a little different from what I do, but yeah. I don't use the little backwash at all. Speak of it. Now, one thing that's kind of nice with this ore we're testing from the mystery dump is it's got so much to pan that I can see some nuances I don't, usually see. Is there any gold to find in Maine? No, Chris, I haven't. I believe there was some. We were up in New York a while back, but I'm not sure. According to Honey Bunny, there is some in glacial moraine up there. Hey, Secret Creek. I know there's some in, was it Vermont? And some in New York.
There's tourmalines in Maine, I believe.
Yes, the question was gold.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, there is some up there. David Villa says there is gold in Maine, good for dredging too. Okay. USGA? U.S. Gold Association, maybe? USGS. Okay, that makes more sense. Typing can be a real pain. Anyhow, Eva's going to present some information later. We're starting to Well, she is starting to identify possible indicator phenomena up there at top of the hill. There's an area she calls the disturbance, which is actually a reasonably good name for it, which I will describe a little bit better later, where she's been doing some loaming, or taking soil samples around it, and then I'll pan them because I'm just much faster and I got stronger arms and stuff. It's hard on her wrists and elbows. Um, so she'll take samples when we're up there, and then I can pan them down here. And it's pointed us a couple little spots there, and she may be onto some stuff. She'll be getting to you in a bit. Hey, David. Um, this particular location also seems unusually ideal for testing dowsing. And one of the viewers sent us some dowsing rods a while back. We haven't really had much of a chance to use them, but on this particular case, it looks uh, pretty ideal to test out. Um, the rain has been so bad here, Honey Bunny, that everything is, I mean, it's so wet I have trouble getting it through a half-inch screen. And so that would make it a little bit difficult, but I like the idea. Um, Honey Bunny suggests you might also try using a magnet to see if there's some magnetics various places and stuff. Um, but anyhow,
Well, I'm looking at making a grind and down one of my crystals.
yeah. But anyhow, that's we've also been spending more effort at the mill because um, I mean, just to give you an idea, was it Wednesday, Tuesday to Wednesday night, I think it was. I was doing some panning for Eva, left the pans out on the porch, and came back the next morning, and they were literally overflowing with water. You know, at least an inch and a half of rain. So that causes, okay, Honey Bunny, that causes issues that we have to deal with. We have to go out to the ranch and pump off the rain covers, and we can't just throw ore into a crusher because it's sticky. And so it just takes more time and effort to get stuff done. Hi, how's it going, Anders? Glad to hear from you. Everyone going well up there? It sounds like things are going well. Let's see. Starting to get wintertime up here, so I imagine it's about getting to be wintertime up there too. But yep, it it's definitely cooler now, but it hasn't gotten cold yet. So we haven't been getting any snow. Although, yeah, Anders says everything's going just fine, little one.
Yay!
Yeah,
Hi, Anders.
that's good. Um, and it's so fun when you guys would visit and stuff. I still get a smile every time I think about you driving the Minor Bago that time, because it's just so big compared to what you're used to, and just around here it's an excellent Jeep trail, but compared to what you're used to, it was rather different, and so it was just way cool. We had a good time. And that's possible, Brian. Eva can get into that in a little bit there, but what we've got on the board here, I was trying to get a video made today because I needed to get these samples done and out today, head to the lab, the assay lab. It wasn't so much these particular samples, although they would be useful, but there were some other samples that we wanted to get to the lab real quick so that we could get some results and use that to maybe guide us a bit on next weekend. So far, it appears that in the loaming experiments, the gold that I can pan seems to be reasonably well correlated with the gold.
With the quartz, you mean? You said the gold.
No, the panning I'm doing seems to match the assays that come
Okay,
out.
well then put it that way.
Okay.
Panning gold should
Yeah.
correlate with gold.
Assay. It's not a guarantee, but it seems to be pretty reliable indication. So that's good. Yeah, Brian, iron is usually associated with gold fairly closely, possibly even more so than quartz, but each deposit is different. And so we just kind of evaluate each one. And the stuff at top of the hill is a little bit weird in certain ways, not as obvious, I would guess, as certain other stuff. We see things that look like, wow, there should be gold there, and there isn't. And we see other stuff and just take samples like, wow, there's gold there. For example, the two best samples from the disturbed area. Hey, Mr. Lodak. We're not the same kind of rock at all. So it's life is more complex than one would like. But I say that's kind of Eva's thing. What we're trying to do with the mystery dump material, because there's so much gold in the coarser regime, and by that I mean like above 300 mesh, we're working on the concept, and I think we'll probably wind up doing it, of what you would call a hybrid system, where you have a gravity separation ahead of a leaching circuit. And this requires a bunch of testing. And one of the tests, one of the critical tests on any hard rock gold ore is something called mineral liberation. In a placer ore, generally you're looking, what's the gold particle sizes? A particle size analysis is kind of a similar sort of thing. Oh, they got a house right next to you, huh? Well, that's very convenient. How's that working out? They're nice guy. How's Haley adapting to Sweden? Last I heard, she was doing pretty good. But anyhow, so in the case of a hard rock deposit, in order to get the gold separated by any method, you have to know how fine you have to crush the rock. Excellent, David. So what this is a graphic I did for the video, which I should get up in the next day or two. You start with a rock here that has gold particles in it. And when you crush that rock, let's see. Well, here's a rock that has gold particles in it. I'm sure it does. All the quartz in this area does. I specifically got this for these textures here. I want to show Rock Butcher if he shows up. So anyhow, you start with a rock with gold in it, and you start crushing it. Now, if you crush it real fine, you can get all the gold particles separated from rock particles. You break them all loose. The question is, how fine do you have to do that? I wouldn't say it's more like lamellar texturing, I believe. It's layers in there. It probably shows about as good as anything there. It's not vesicular. That is, it's not a bunch of holes. There's a little bit of vesicular there, but this is what I was specifically looking at. And anyhow, so I mean, if you crush this rock to 400 mesh, you're probably going to do a good job of liberating the gold. It's also going to cost you an incredible amount of money, and you're going to wind up with dust, and that's it. We're working on it, Chris. I think we need it's more the software where I can show stuff. I mean, I may wind up putting up videos like, here's the pictures for today. So when you're watching the live stream, you can click to the various pictures or something. Anyhow, so 400 mesh would probably be really good for almost everything, except, I mean, when it comes to liberating the gold. It's just, it creates a whole bunch of other problems. On the other hand, if you don't crush it enough, you don't get good recoveries. So it's always a balancing act. And I don't know if I got the bandwidth, but anyhow, it's always a balancing act. So you want to find out, at what point have we crushed it enough? That's the key part. Okay. Now, and I may do that, David. Kind of industry standard hard rock gold, you're generally running 50 to 100 mesh in there. If you're going to be doing a gravity separation, usually a little finer. And if you're going with just leaching and it's a fairly porous rock, you can go coarser. Hey, Red Wing. So I say it depends. So this that I did this video should be posted the next day or two on is how to determine when you've liberated the gold. Okay. So you start with rocks. In this case, we started with roughly 300 pounds. Some of it had already been ground. Yeah, this is testing. Correct, David. And so we took buckets of samples from different stuff, put it together, ran it all through the Stutenroth. And because I'd rather have for this test a little bit coarser than finer. If it's fine enough that it works perfectly, it's like, okay, that didn't tell me where the dividing point is. So with the Montana B ore, I had it set for, I had a 14 mesh screen in there. And so I just left it in there. We ran about 300 pounds through the Stutenroth. We then split off 100-pound sample, of which we split a smaller sample to send off for assay, and then ran that 100 pounds over the little micro sluice from Infinity Prospecting into buckets. We changed the buckets a couple times to make sure that it wasn't washing stuff out effectively, and then set those samples to the side of tailings. And that's what I did this test on. Now, the pan you see when you look at the thumbnail for this is a pan of some concentrates out of that sluice for, that was about was that pan the 100-pound test or the 20-pound test, little one? Do you recall?
20 pound, I believe.
I think that was the 20-pound test, but I'm not certain. Okay. So that's the amount of gold out of 20 pounds of rock. Now it's very fine, so it's very thin on that pan. It's not thick. But we ran it over the sluice. We collected the tailings. Then I took those tailings and I ran this test here. I wet screened the tailings. First of all, unless it's been freshly ground dry, if there's any moisture at all, or if it's gotten wet, and then dry screening is not real efficient at small sizes. The top size was 40 mesh plus. It's actually about 40 to 14 because it was ground to 14 mesh minus. So essentially there's a 40 mesh screen here. The stuff that doesn't go through is this sample. Then we sieve that on top of a 100 mesh screen, and that creates this sample. And then the stuff that went through the 100 mesh screen was this sample. Okay. Now at this point, you have gold and rock. You have some gold stuck to rock, some gold in rock, a lot of gold free of the rock, and you don't know how much. That's what we're trying to find out. So then I take this sample and I pan it. And I pan it into concentrate, heavies and light material. Well, no, sorry. This is heavies. This is the lights. Yeah. So anyhow, double check. It's hard to see the color. Huh. Okay. It looks a little different on the screen. Okay, Chris. Or is that to Red Wing? But anyhow, by panning any free gold loose, and I'm not trying to get it clean. I'm just trying to get it away from the other stuff here. I wind up with a significant size sample that has no free gold in it. The only gold it has is that which is bound to the rock particles. Then I did it to the 40 mesh to 100 mesh, and I did it to the 100 mesh minus. In both of these samples here, I did not see any gold big enough to get rejected off the screen. That means the sluice did a pretty good job of getting anything at least 100 mesh or larger, never made it into this test, which is good. It actually seems to do a lot better than that, but we're still kind of defining it. This sample, on the other hand, had a fair amount of fine gold still in it. It only amounted to 13% of the total mass, but it had gold somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 40 to 75% of the original, just judging by eye. So it still had gold. It was all really fine stuff. So I had to pan this one 3 or 4 times before I was finally not seeing hardly any gold in the concentrates again, and just continually just throwing away the concentrates, and then repan the same stuff, throw away the concentrates, do it again. So I have 3 samples here, which are essentially free of free milling gold. Okay. And so I then dried the rock, and it's on its way to the lab for assay. And it's one of those things that it's actually fairly effective. It's not terribly crude. It seems pretty simple and basic, but once you get good at panning the microfine gold, you can pretty much get rid of the free gold down to 500 mesh. Okay. when I get these assays back, theoretically, at some point, all of a sudden, this rock will jump in gold concentration. I would expect it to be between these two. On the other hand, this may be pretty good. When we did the fire assays of the heads and the tailings from that test, we got the results back, and I'm quite frankly skeptical of how good a recovery I got. Not because I'm skeptical of the sluice, that's because I'm skeptical that at a 14 mesh grind, I got really good liberation. That would be quite unusual. I think what happened in that case was the head sample got a little nugget effect and kicked it up, and that throws all the calculations off. But the sluice seems to be doing a fairly good job. It's very short. Sluicing generally, you need some length. And so a single, 30-inch sluice, it's not a whole lot. And we can easily make a much longer sluice. Hey, Mr. Virtue, how's it going? So, if the only problem is recovery, then a longer sluice should do us a good job. On the other hand, if the problem is liberation, we should find that out here. Because if this sample here has about the same amount of gold as this, of non-free gold as this sample, then obviously it didn't get much liberation. I would expect these two to be radically different. It might be these two. Might be this one here is radically different from the head sample, in which case that's a very good thing. Because we originally crushed 300 pound. Yeah, the particle size and shape makes a lot of difference. And I say we're just right now going for the simplest gravity extraction system there is. And if that works well, why invent radial tires if your bias ply tires are doing the job just great? But anyhow, I say we shall see what happens. I also took in the larger catch basin, which the buckets were sitting in, I added a little more Eco Gold X and stirred it up just to be sure. And we took a head grade sample of the solution that we were doing the sluicing with, and we will therefore have a solution grade of the stuff that wound up in the final settling before it went off to the leach pad. A clean gold sluice. Let's see what a clean gold looks like. Now let's see. Clean gold sluice. Let's try it. Clean gold. Let's see. What has it got here? What is the... I don't know. The stuff he's showing in that pan there is much bigger than the stuff I'm dealing with. Apparently, I'll have to doing some. I'm not sure. It's not instantly obvious what the surface is. It's got a very, looks like it's finely textured. Let's see. Let's see if I hit products. It looks surface-wise more like a what do you call it? Miller table type material. It's very fine textured. That might work out pretty well on a cleanup. I don't know. Never heard of them. Let's put that in the. Okay, I can check that out later. Yeah, the VDR mat's also getting me down to below 300 mesh. Chris is telling you, bless you.
Thank you.
Pool table slate, huh? Oh, magnetic sand to create mini riffles. Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about there. And yeah, that has some. It's also real easy to pull the magnetite away from the gold when you're done. Say, I'm not, particular on what I use as long as it works easily. Yeah, well, sorry, Chris. She's got the sniffles. Don't ask me why.
Every once in a while, I have.
I know. I know. You just keep sneezing. Yeah, Dave. I say it may be that we wind up side by side testing a number of different sluice materials and configurations and stuff, because we'll have a reason to do so. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to do, but unless I have a particular application that justifies the time and effort involved, yeah, sometime in the future. Right now, I say with the mystery dump material, we have enough coarse gold to make it worthwhile to consider. And the big advantage of a sluice as opposed to a jig or a table or something like that is pure simplicity. That's all. There's no additional mechanical stuff happening. It just runs through. So if it works well, then that's fine. In our case, because we're planning on using a Eco Gold X leaching solution as the liquid and then running it into either a tank or to a pad, absolute recovery of the real fine gold is not nearly as critical, because we're going to get that with the Eco Gold X. High confidence. And so if the sluice can get basically 100% of the 300 mesh plus, the Eco Gold X should get 100% of the 300 mesh minus that is not crystal locked. Thus, we need to know where crystal lock occurs. Yeah, I know. We've got the EGX solution, which means you can't use aluminum, you can't use galvanized, you can't use brass. There's a lot of stuff you can't use.
Oh, that reminds me, add a sprinkler to your list.
Oh, yeah, sprinkler.
And a net skimmer.
Ah, thank you.
Skimmer.
Let's see, sprinkler and pool net. So that also limits potentially the type of sluice you can have if it uses a material that is not compatible with Eco Gold X, or if it's going to precipitate gold out of solution. So the VDR mat does that. It should be very easy to hold in place under the situation that we're going to be doing. Um, so we're not going to need anything like metal riffles or expanded metal or anything like that to hold down the mat. Um, that is useful. All some of these other possibilities. No, we want to. The net you use for a swimming pool has a very fine mesh, and we have organic materials, leaf detritus, and little sticks, and pine needles. They get ground up in the impact mill, and you wind up with stuff floating on the solution. Now, organics can theoretically absorb gold out of solution, you know, and so we gotta, we want to see about just skimming it off. And that the test setup we got, for example, after the bucket, it goes into a tub that has kind of an underflow sort of thing. Jean-Francois, I've got an answer to your question. So anyhow, we want to be able to skim the organics off the top, because a lot of what we're getting, like a dump material and stuff like that, it just naturally has some organics. And so we want to be able to get those out of the way and deal with them if needed, etc. So now, Jean-Francois, if I'm not mistaken, last week you gave me a question. And it was to the effect of, what is the best quad? Okay. No, I have not, Jean-Francois. Now, that was the question at hand. And of course, afterwards, I'm thinking, define best. Best in what manner? So my assumption is it's not necessarily the most economical, although that is always a great thing. If I have a machine like a quad, I want reliability, ease of use, safety of use. Okay. Now, I talked to somebody, and yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Jean-Francois. Now, this guy fixes quads and motorcycles 5 days a week. That's his job. Okay. And without hesitation, he said a late 90s to early 2000s Suzuki King quad with the mechanical controls. In other words, when you're shifting, you're not flipping a switch that's doing a relay or like that. He says the newer ones that have all that shit, they're still pretty reliable. But the old ones where, you push a foot pedal and it, hits the transmission and stuff, he says they're almost bulletproof. And they will always limp home. Okay. He says it's almost impossible to stop them. Okay. And he was very confident that Suzuki King quad, late 1990s to early 2000s, with the mechanical control systems, not the electronic shifters and all that other stuff. It's all basically mechanical stuff, not squat for electrical. And that just makes it, systems. I mean, shifting and all that other stuff is done with cables and levers and linkages, not with wires and solenoids and actuators and stuff. Okay. And so that was his thing. He says the newer King quads are fine. They're still about the most reliable thing out there, but they're not as reliable as the old ones used to be, because they now got all this electronic crap, because people like things to be so simple. Power steering, things like that. Okay. So I trust this person to be honest with me, and he has a very strong confidence that that's the answer for you. Okay. And I know my brother gave me his old quad because it's got an electric shifter for the transmission. If you got something that you're looking for, go ahead, Brian. You know, and so my brother's quad, the electric shifter is screwed up, etc. And he just gave it to me. He said they make a conversion kit and stuff, but I'm done with this. I'm getting older. I'm driving a CJ now. I think so, Chris. And I say it's a sort of thing. He says you need to just buy the conversion kit, but it's like $300 or something. So it's sitting over at Lauren's house waiting for winter when we got nothing else to do. And then that's the plan, is to convert. It's a Honda, so it's a pretty good one, but that I'm not a huge fan of electrical whenever you can make it something. So anyhow. Okay, you're looking for the tabletop Surefire, I think it was. The one we have, basically. Okay. So if anyone out there has one for sale, let Brian know about it. Be aware, Brian. Remember, we've replaced that heating element like 4 times now. Uh, and so, you definitely also want to have a catch tray in there. Make a catch tray in there so when you spill it just doesn't eat the hell out of everything. Trust me on this. Okay? It's well worth it. uh, yeah, Jean-Francois, I'm sure it is. Um, there's somebody that's doing some experimentation and stuff, and with a little luck, we may wind up with an experimental model or a prototype model to test out. And that could be very interesting. It sounds like a pretty good furnace. I was with Lauren one time when he used microwave smelting. It seemed to work just fine. And the flux is more expensive. And then something happened either to the microwave or his insulation or something like that. But we did one with microwave smelting and it worked okay. Well, what kind of ovens are we talking about? Are you talking like smelting ovens, John? Or are you talking like for more regular ovens? I say right now our budget's pretty low because it looks highly likely that we're going to around 2000 Fahrenheit is basically about the max temperature we run. Yeah, kale wool is pretty cheap. I wish someone made nice, relatively inexpensive ceramic foam board type insulation. It's nice because it's rigid, whereas kale wool is not.
Yeah, and it would be nice if they made that kind of thing that had more structural integrity than the stuff that's already in.
Yeah, and that what do you call it? That tabletop one there, the um, the insulation loses its strength very quickly. Yeah, you can make sheet metal, although with cable, sometimes a circular housing is nicer. I mean, if you're just building a basic, I'm going to melt some crap furnace, a cylindrical chunk of steel like an old propane tank, some KO wool, and a torch stuck in the side, can do a pretty good job. Whoa, that's complicated, John. Yeah. And say it depends on whether you're just doing pure smelting, whether you're doing assaying, where you're doing cupelling, and I say there's
Yeah,
there's
entirely
all kinds
depends
of
on
variables.
what you want to do with your furnace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if all you were doing was melting down concentrates, then just a simple propane cylindrical furnace would work fine.
Jeff Williams has a video about building one.
Yeah, Jeff Williams did a nice video on that. In well, I say it looks like we're going to get a really nice furnace for free. The tabletops are around $600. And say they're not industrial tough. Let me put it that way. But
if I may interject something here,
she wants to interject.
As the person who uses this, mind you, there have been times when I have sincerely looked forward to killing this thing with a 10-pound sledgehammer, okay? But that said, considering we have pushed it far beyond its design specs, we have abused it in 17 directions. He completely did all kinds of disgusting things to it, trying to make it better. The damn thing's holding up real well. Just saying.
So, anyhow, if you are going to get one of those tabletops or whatever, I definitely get the stuff to build new heating elements because it's not that hard. And
and they're ridiculously expensive.
And the ones from the factory are like $90, and we can make one for less than 10. I mean, high temperature stuff can just get completely out of control real easily. For what you pay, the tabletop furnace is not bad. Okay. I'm not sure. Are those 15-gram furnaces, Cupels, crucibles you're using, little one?
I believe so. I think to look it up again because you ordered them in the first place. I can tell you how much they will hold.
Okay. How much will they hold?
An average charge I put in there runs between 85 and 105 grams.
Okay, so up to about 100 grams of charge. And a significant amount of that is litharge, which is really dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. The horizontal coils have a lot of advantages. And that's the one thing that the tabletop doesn't. They go over the top. And so that creates an issue when you're replacing them because you got to pull the staples and put them back in. And now, what is the Kodak wants to know, what is your budget, Brian Smith? And apparently $600 or more. Because that's kind of the minimum. And what you're saying is kind of like what's the maximum of his comfort zone? Is that what you're looking for, John? Why don't you try that, Brian? Tell him what's your maximum comfort zone price that you're looking for. Now that, because of some modifications into that tabletop that we did, it only holds one crucible at a time right now. However, the new furnace that's showing up should be a little bit larger and sufficient. Oh, really, John? Oh, yeah, used. Hey, if you see something interesting, let me know. Also, I'm looking for a decent jaw crusher, although that's a low priority right now. So if anyone sees like a 6x8 to an 8x10 jaw crusher at a good price, let me know. So, but yeah, I say the one that looks like we're going to be getting to test should hold up to 4 crucibles at once, which would be a huge improvement. And as far as I know, it still runs on 110 volts. 110 volt, 15 amp, I believe. Although it's not too hard to get 110 volt up to 20 amp. You know? Okay, 120, whatever. We may be doing that this winter, Chris. Maybe building one of my impact mills, but a bigger one. 6x8 to 8x10, somewhere around there, Jean-Francois, for a jaw crusher, if that's what you were talking about. The RC46, it's really not designed as a production machine. And I pulled the rolls apart to prevent wearing them when I'm not using them for doing samples. But even then, I say it's not really designed for that. We'll hold 4 crucibles. So, just a second here.
I wish.
These are small crucibles.
Mine won't. Mine will hold 4 of the really tiny ones.
Let's see. Okay, furnace inside dimensions 9.5 inches by 7.5 inches by 7.5 inches high. Okay, and that will fit 4 of Eva's crucibles in it. So, yeah, I've got 12 showing here. So, as I say, that's it'll be interesting to see yeah, no, this one that they're going to be sending over is, let's see, let's see. Trying to double check. I know we were talking 110 or 120 volts, whatever it is. It's not in this email. Let's see. Okay. Don't have it at my fingertips here. Okay, Chris. Why do you not want neutral current? And by that, you mean going from hot to neutral? So you're talking. I'll talk to the manufacturer on this one, Chris. He seems to be a lot more knowledgeable than I am on these things. So, yeah, 220 AC, both wires are hot. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the concern is, Chris. Okay, huge phase imbalance putting all the okay. I think I see what you're saying, Chris. If you got a 240 volt generator that's tapped off for a 110 circuit, then the generator itself is running in an unbalanced manner because one winding is putting out a bunch of current and the other one, the other hot, is not. Okay. Okay, Chris. I think I understand what the situation is there. So, so that's basically some of the stuff we're kind of working on. Right now, of course, it's just racing the snow. Not sure when the snow um, I think I understand, Chris, but I say I'll talk to the manufacturer. This is going to be a prototype. So pretty much I think we're going to be using it just the way they planned. And if there's any potential changes in plans, we'll talk to them about it, you know. But I just got way too many things to do right now. And I got to get out to the ranch because with all this rain, even protecting everything as much as we can from the rain, we still picked up enough liquid that I need to focus the rest of this week um, and try and get some of that solution dried out and concentrated more so that we can. I'm not talking about down here, Dave. I'm talking at 7,100 feet. that's where the snow's likely to hit. Last year, I think it was like last week of September, it became impassable. Yeah, yeah, John, that usually helps. The order of operations can be important too. Uh, but I say so. It's interesting stuff going on, but we really need to try and get that solution down before the winter hits and it becomes very hard to dry stuff out. You gonna pour again this weekend? Okay. I'll get as much dried out as I can and get the covers back on. Yep.
Gonna pour here this weekend?
That's what he says.
Would this have something to do with that cyclone bomb thing?
A
that
bomb
hit the West Coast?
cyclone? I
Yeah.
don't know. Let's see. Weather Helena. Saturday, Sunday, it shows rain.
Oh, lovely.
Yep. Yeah. We may not be doing any field work this weekend, little one.
Well, that stinks. I need to get back to the disturbance.
Well, we may have to do it during the week.
So what? Maybe go out there and uncover everything like tomorrow and then take off?
Well, no, we got to work. So we may have to go out like next Tuesday and Wednesday or something
Yeah.
and say, I don't know. You got 3 inches of rain there, honey bunny. Blame it on climate change.
I'm turning off the cooler, by the way.
I think, say we got at least 1.5 inches that one day. Oh, I'll have to check it out, honey buddy. Oh my goodness. Does anyone have any questions about this situation here? Again, there should be a video in the next day or two kind of covering it and reiterating it and doing a little show and tell and stuff. And if there's no more questions about that, I'll go ahead and start modifying the whiteboard there.
Good looking dude wants to be
Oh.
introduced.
Oh, Eva wants me to show you this. First of all, I was hoping Rock Butcher would be here so he could look at this.
Gonna have
Could
to
you give me my knife just to make sure this is quartz instead of calcite?
Here you go, and I will move that light since they're not going to be able to see it.
At
Same
what
thing
point do you know when the ore is crushed to fine? You use different sieves and test different things. Wow. Glasses? Thank you. Yep, that's quartz. Anyhow, yeah, that happens a lot, honey bunny. This, I believe, don't quote me on this, is the kind of texture you get in what's known as a boiling water system, where you're up at the top of the zone where the water is starting to boil. And so this would be the top of your ore zone. You're not going to get any gold any higher than this. That is what I believe. However, I can't without a drop of hydrochloric acid will tell you about calcite. The other thing, if you take a sharp knife and you run it across it and it won't scratch, it's not calcite. Okay? See, this stuff here doesn't scratch with a knife blade.
Besides, the vibe's all wrong for calcite. Everybody knows this.
This makes, I can tell it's not calcite. Here's another.
Look at this good looking dude. Wait until you see this good looking dude.
Oh,
This is a good looking dude.
why did you toe the rock?
Because the last time I was trying to show them color and texture in my crystals, they couldn't see crap because of your light.
Well, I see, here's a chunk of quartz, and you can see various layers in the quartz. Here you've got actual quartz crystals. That's very definitive there from the shape of the crystals that this is quartz. This is probably iron. That may be iron or maybe something else. Not sure. Is scratch a positive hit? It will definitely falsify whether or not it's calcite. If you can't scratch it with a knife, I mean a good hard knife, it ain't calcite. So hey Jim, how's it going? So
Dang cool looking dude right there.
so this shows a couple of things. First of all, it shows that the crack was at least this big. It shows there were multiple events, hardly surprising. This might have filled in first, then it opened up some more, and it was in the process of filling in when it with another event when it was incomplete. Ugh. So anyhow, there's that. You got some other crystals over there, I know.
Yeah. This needs to be washed, but
Making good progress, Jim, whatever the project. So there again, we have serious quartz crystals here. And in this area, the gold seems to be associated with the quartz. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of mineralization there, but even the relatively poor looking mineralized quartz seems to be doing okay. There's some more.
what I find interesting about this is the back of this one, which I don't know if you showed them.
What? No, I didn't. But
I mean, I find the back to be just as interesting as the
this
front
one here
now.
seems to show a lot of vugginess. Yeah, that looks fairly cubic and stuff. This would indicate to me you had some sulfide mineralization that's weathered out here. There you go, Jim. I still got those little weighing things from Prospector trip for you. And so yeah, this we found one of these that had a pocket that was still filled with red clay. And I cleaned it out carefully and panned it. Couldn't find any gold in it. But you crush this quartz and you'll get some gold. So strange. It seems to be more associated with the quartz than the iron mineralization.
No, I have a few things to
Okay.
show them in here.
So now, do you want me to show them the kind of layout of the disturbed area first?
Yeah, you do whiteboard things while I start talking.
Okay.
He's going to make pictures on whiteboard for you. So anyway,
Ugh.
there is an area that I have taken to calling of the disturbance.
It's not between my ears.
The southern end of it is top slope. The northern end of it is down slope. The western end of it is west, and the eastern end of it is east. Okay. Now, on the eastern side, there's a whole bunch of other minor disturbances that are not related to this thing. On the western side, there are a few minor disturbances that are not related to this thing. Down north of it, down the hill, there's even more disturbances that are not related to this thing. So I first went in. I need to sample a very large area here. I'd say it's what, maybe 50 feet, 60 feet across there and about 60 by 60 maybe?
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
50 at least.
it's probably at least 50 by 50, maybe 50 by 60. There is large dumpage in one area. There's things that look like dozer pushes. There are things that look like other dumps. There are things that look like dog holes. So I needed to approach the sampling on this one from a rather odd point of view. So the first thing I did was arbitrarily, by looking at the differences in botany and the differences in rock that I could see on the surface, I went around the outside perimeter and flagged a whole bunch of trees and made basically a circle. And then I walked to what I call the nominal center of this circle, where there happened to be a young pine tree growing, thank goodness. And I put several pieces of ribbon around that and marked the GPS coordinates and deemed it nominal center. Then I started looking at what needed to be sampled within this area. And the first run, there's going to be several others. The first run, I devoted 6 samples to the dump thing down on the northern end. The other 8 samples were taken in pairs from various other areas where there was a visual appearance that the dirt was a different color. But along the way, my mind started noticing something, and I didn't really think about it until I started really looking at the dump. What my mind was noticing was this. See that nice, pretty, bright green moss? Well, for whatever reason, this nice, pretty, bright green moss, and I don't know what kind it is yet, does not grow on the host rock at all. It doesn't like the host rock at all. No idea why. It only grows on quartz. It only grows on rocks that have quartz in them. And furthermore, it only grows where the quartz is. Because I have several samples where it was zoned in the sense that you had where the quartz was meeting the host rock, or you had a wide vein of quartz that's running through the host rock. And well, by golly, the wide vein of quartz running through the host rock has that moss all over it. And the host rock doesn't. I have also noticed that there are different types of lichens that choose to live on the host rock versus the quartz. So once I noticed that, it became very easy for me to spot quartz floats, quartz boulders, quartz rocks, etc. from a distance. When I started digging into my personal dump on this project, the other thing I noticed is when I was removing quartz boulders that were in the only part of the dump where I found quartz, and I found it because I saw that moss on the surface, they had different types of fungus growing under them than the host rock does. Still haven't figured that one out. And that was the only part of the dump where wild strawberries were growing. So one of the factors that I used to choose my initial sampling choices for where I was going to grab my loaming samples from was based on the botany. And funny enough, I don't know if it's going to hold true, but so far we have the beginning of a trend. We have a coincidence because the area where the quartz was, the only area around the dump that had quartz, had some of the highest loaming values in terms of gold. And the only other area that had oddness going on, and in that case, the oddness was the only place where I have a huge juniper bush. A juniper showed up out of freaking nowhere, and the soil looked very different, was the second highest values for gold. So part of what you need to do when you're looking at running a sampling program
The plants, honey
on
bunny,
a
not the fruits.
very, very odd piece of ground is you should be also looking at the botany. Because it turns out that when I started looking around other things up at top of the hill, my observations about this moss held true. So one of the things I'm going to be doing this week is, first of all, figuring out what particular kind of moss that is amongst the anywhere between 8 and a dozen varieties of mosses and lichens that I have noted exist there so far. So I can try to figure out what it's eating, why it likes to only attach itself to quartz. The other thing I'm going to be looking at is there was a whole bunch of random patches of dirt up there where there's no rock visible at all. And yet this quartz is peeping up merrily through the fallen pine needles. So I am wondering if it might not be a good idea to run some of that through my strain or through my sifters, sift it out, and hand it over to the dude so that he can pan it. Because if indeed that quartz, if indeed that moss is a solid indicator, and for whatever reason, the stuff that moss likes to eat is coincidentally partnered with the gold, then that's going to be really helpful when I'm looking at a whole hill full of dirt and pine needles and there's no outcroppings in sight. So it's been a very interesting week. Yeah, exactly, Jean-Francois. Hintern, I am already looking at the idea of the pH as well. What I find so interesting about this is the types of lichen that choose to grow on our host rock are very different from the types of lichen that choose to grow on our quartz. And that moss is in the same category. The fauna, the flora up there, and our fungi up there seem to have a very tight range of conditions that they like to proliferate themselves in, which is fine with me if I can use those conditions to my advantage. So I still have a lot of work to do on that particular area. And I need to find out more about those guys, because those guys, it is so cool when you dig a piece of quartz out of the dump and all of the bugs are filled with that. Ooh. Go figure, especially since there's no visible iron in that. I've seen far more iron staining on some of our host rock than I've seen on the quartz. And those guys are still moss attractors. And yeah, I'm thinking I need a plantologist code back. I think I may actually have to study botany this winter. It's a little bit bizarre and unaccountable. Just saying. But that is pretty much the area. The other thing I discovered this week, there is a phenomenon. When you are loaming, you're breaking up the soil with a mattock or a rock hammer or whatever, and then you're shoveling it in to a nice little sieve, and you're sieving it down to a specific particle size. In my case, it's passing 1/4 inch. It's 1/4 inch minus. And then you're panning it to see what's in it. Well, it turns out that if you're digging through decomposed rock, it scritches. The only way I can describe this scritch is, first of all, the vibration that you feel in your hammer, in your hand, as you're pulling through this material to break it up, to shovel it, causes a different vibration than when you're digging through actual dirt.
You said the rock is rich. It's the quartz.
Yeah.
The country
quartz
rock is different.
Yeah, the country rock has a distinctly different feeling. It is scritchy, but it's scritchy in a different way than the quartz. The quartz has an almost staticky feeling. And I can't think of a better word to describe it, but it's a kind of a staticky feeling. Dirt has a swishy feeling. And when you dump this stuff in your strainer and you start shaking it so it goes into your bucket, it makes a distinctly different sound when it hits that screen if it's got a high quartz content. So I have a few more things working in my favor on this. But yeah, that area there is going to prove to be quite the challenge. There's a lot of odd things going on here. Yeah, Brian, I absolutely can get that. I mean, that I would tend to agree that I have noticed that different types of rocks definitely have a different sound on my shovel. They definitely have a different sound and a different feel on my trowel. There's a difference in sound and feeling between my plastic trowel and my metal trowel. And there's definitely a different sound when they hit that screen.
I know some places where there might be, when we were climbing around that mountain, putting some corner stakes in, there was plenty of mushrooms running around, but I can't ID them. So
Kodak, I have seen 1.5 zillion different mushrooms. I'm taking pictures of all of them so I can figure out what the hell they are. Never heard about that, honey bunny, but it would not surprise me at all. But I will say, that is another interesting thing. The mushrooms tend to proliferate in different types of woody environments. I mean, you'll find some mushrooms that are proliferating in rotted hardwood trees that will not proliferate in rotted pine trees up there. There's distinct varieties of fungi going on. It's kind of weird. It is very, very strange. But that is the area we have. And he may be able to explain what's going on there. But my goal is to figure out the next phase of the testing. We did take larger samples from the 2 areas that tested the highest so far, and we're going to figure out what's going on there. But I may end up spending a lot of my winter dealing with botany and trying to figure out what kind of moss I got to deal with here. Yep. Jean-Francois, you do not have to tell me about blueberries. I grew up in Maine, and after every forest fire within 2 years, you've got bumper blueberry crops. And huckleberries seem to be the same way, by the way. Yeah, Brian, that is one thing I'm looking at. I do not want to ring, I don't want to cut down any trees. But if I find one that gets blown down that is the same size within a quarter of an inch of a tree I have standing, I have no objection to slicing it and counting a few rings.
Okay. Do you see where Brian says core it? Do you know what that means?
Have you got a good method for coring a tree that is?
They make
Yeah.
They make devices to core trees,
Okay.
and they take a little sample like that.
No, you are absolutely allowed to core a tree if you do it small enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're welcome to core trees if you can do it small enough. I do not want to hurt my trees. I like my trees. My trees are cool.
That's a very good thing. We need to write that down.
Get a core kit for tree.
See how much those can.
But that rock that he showed you a few minutes ago is unusual for another reason. We have almost no rocks up there that have any pink on them anywhere. Okay. That dude there is the largest piece of quartz I have seen on the entire damn freaking mountain so far that has any pink anywhere on it. I still need to experiment and I still need to look at it under the microscope because I initially thought that most of that pink might be a mineral constituent, some sort of mineral that's pink, since it seemed to also be in the crystals. But then when I took a look at it under a loupe, it's like, wait a minute, it looks like that might be something on rather than in. So I have to take it to a much deeper level and look at it under my microscope. This guy is another piece. Can you fix that light there?
I can, but I'm doing something else.
This guy is another piece that has pink on him. He's a piece of quartz. He had some of the moss growing in all those places, but I washed it out very, very carefully so I could see what's up with him. Now, you notice all this darkness on him. Initially, Bear was thinking that stuff was mineralization. I took a look at it under the loupe, and then I subjected it to my microscope at the lab. And by golly, would you believe it's some kind of lichen? They're little teeny tiny round black things. Haven't figured them out yet. But they also like to eat quartz or like to live on quartz and not like to live on that native siltstone at all. No idea. But this dude here has some pink in him. And I'm planning to very carefully split him open and see what is going on here. Because we have seen almost no other pink rocks anywhere on that hill. And all the ones I've run into have been in basically the same small concentrated area, except for that big dude. So I'm going to find out what's up with those two. Have a lot to do, much to do in that regard. Just very, very crazy. Peroxide, huh, Jean-Francois? I'll have to try that. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I do have some peroxide at the lab. And your point about scat is quite possible, Brian, because, and this is an entirely different side note here, but when we first started going up to the top of the hill at the beginning of the year, there were still some 6-7 foot deep areas of snow that were in the shadows up there when we were up there examining claim stakes and mapping things out and getting a feel for the area. And there were trails of pink on this snow, about that color. Not blood. Don't know what it was. I assumed it was some kind of bacteria that might be growing in animal pee because I did not see any animal poo. I didn't see any scat. So it is quite possible, you know? Honey Buddy says, yeah, there really is pink cobalt. Really weird. Jean-Francois said that the big pinky guy come from a large chunk of immobile rock, or was it float? That big guy was float. So, you know, and these two guys, these smaller guys I just showed you are float also. I don't know where they came from. No idea, since I have seen no other pink up there yet. We have found, float-wise, a lot of quartz. Like
In limited areas, though.
in limited areas, we have found a lot of quartz. We have found no outcroppings of quartz. We have found no outcroppings of siltstone, the host rock, that have any veins of quartz in them. I have yet to find any piece of quartz that is attached to anything. And that includes some really big ass pieces that I have found. Okay? We're talking boulders like this that ain't attached to anything. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, it is quite possible. I'm going to be doing some work on that pink stuff to figure out what it is. But that you did put me in mind, Brian, of what I saw in the snow when we first got up there. So now I've got some other things to think about. But
We're doomed.
yeah, well, you're doomed, because if I had my way, I'd be taking 1 cubic foot deep the entire disturbance and bringing it home so I could gloat over it. Okay. An assay is only as good as the sample. I want a really big sample. A dump truck will work fine, you know, just saying. But anyway, that's where we are on that. So I will turn it back over to him. Hi. You tell them about your chart there.
Okay.
I don't understand your cryptic scribbling.
Cryptic scribbling.
Yeah,
Ugh,
cryptic scribbling.
harshness. Okay. This started out as a hillside. These are the contours. Okay. This is dozer scrape. In my opinion, all of this is dozer scrape. It looks to me like somebody came down here, took a dozer, worked it back and forth here, creating this dump, then worked it back and forth here, creating this dump, and then kind of blended them together right here. Just took a thing. And the interesting thing to me, actually, no. Actually blended them together right about there. That's what I'm doing, Mr. Virtue. This is fairly shallow scrape. Okay. My guess is 1, maybe 2 feet of max. Okay. The bedrock in this area tends to be rather weathered and broken up when you hit it. It can be kind of hard to tell when the soil transitions to bedrock. The quartz was in a layer of the dump here. Beneath that was a layer of post rock. Okay. Now, I am guessing we have no indication of that whatsoever, Jean-Francois. Okay. But I'm guessing that they were scraping this to look at the bedrock. So there's chunks of quartz here. So either they were, that one stratum is almost entirely quartz. Okay. So it's not like they were just picking up float exclusively. So my thought is they pushed this and they pushed this to take a look at the bedrock. Then they went up the hill a little bit here and scraped up just enough to cover all of this, either to keep the Forest Service happy by covering the excavation or to cover what they found so it's not readily visible. Either one makes perfect sense to me. That is why, yes, Jim, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Okay. Now, if you get over on that side, you don't
Yeah.
block everything.
Need to witch it and see.
Okay. So, first of all, I think it was Paul Coover. I may be mistaken, but somebody sent me a set of dowsing rods, which up till now we haven't had a really good reason to use. But this area, it would seem to me to be ideal to try dowsing because the ground cover appears to be virtually non-existent, this sort of depth. So it'd be very easy to, I do not know how long ago the dozer was there, John. We have no information. Okay. And so we were going to try dowsing this. Eva was going to try looking at the mosses. A lot of this is damp enough that the ground itself has mosses on. And
But that moss is not in very many places.
so I say this area here, there's some big chunks of quartz in this area here. The kind that you kind of roll around instead of pick up. And there's a layer in that dump that was dirt and quartz almost entirely, on top of a layer that was almost entirely just broken wall rock, not dirt. Okay. So let's say, I think this has been scraped probably to see what was there, maybe to try and see how deep something went. Don't know. But this is an area, I say, we're planning on trying to douse it. We're trying to look at different things. Eva's going to be taking different, looking for different plant life, taking some samples. We have the capacity in this particular area to hand pan and apparently get good, we can get results in terms of we can see gold or not, etc. If they had a dozer and did not come back, maybe they did not find anything working coming back for. Absolutely. That is possible. Depending on how long ago that would give us a lot of ideas. Now, there's been things that have happened in the last 100 years, both in terms of when equipment was first available, but also things like in World War II. And Jim can tell you, a lot of miners around here got drafted and never came back. Gold mining was forbidden. So therefore, they might have been doing something and something was going on and then never came back. Not sure, but until we can actually find what's in the rock, we can't tell. It was forbidden in World War II because it was not essential to the war effort. World War II was a full court press mobilization. If it didn't help the war, screw it. Now, I know there are instances. No, they didn't stop buying gold. You could have, and it's not because it was illegal. The mining was shut down by the feds. Okay. But I know some people, if they had something like tungsten, I know one mine down by Tucson where the information is it was a gold mine that also had tungsten. And after when the war started, oh, you can't mine gold, but we need tungsten for those penetrator tips for armor piercing bullets. Okay, well, now it's a tungsten mine with byproduct gold instead of a gold mine with byproduct tungsten. And so that's the sort of thing that would happen if the miners, if it justified it. Okay. And I say, so you can have things like that. You can have issues where there was somebody died. There was a falling out amongst mining partners, things like that. If you read histories on old mines, you'll see where quite often they shut down because there was no mineral left that they could find. Others, they mined out everything they could until they got to the water and they couldn't dewater it. All kinds of things can shut down a mine besides running out of the actual valuable mineral. You can have somebody dies, now the mine is in test state and everyone's fighting over it in the will, and nobody can do anything while everyone's fighting. So instead of them saying, okay, look, we'll just go ahead and keep operating the mine and we'll figure out who gets the profit later. But I say, no, it's army pay versus a bullet or prison. Yeah, that's why. That's possible, Jean-Francois. That's definite, honey bunny. So, say we're not sure. We have no records of what was going on in this area here. Okay. We can't find anything. All the records that might apply to this are all in a warehouse right now and won't be available for another year or two. But we are using the loaming to find concentrations of gold. It's clearly working. Metal detector might work, but you have to have pretty good chunks of gold in the bedrock to set off a metal detector. Doesn't mean it won't do it. But I don't have a metal detector right now that I'm comfortable using on this. Yeah, lack of financing could be the technology. Yeah, I'd like to get one. Actually, Jean-Francois, people who really know these things say I would probably be better off with the Gold Monster 1000 because it's a lot easier for a beginner to use. The Gold Bug 2 is a very good machine, but you have to have a fair amount of skill to use it. Yeah, 1.5 millimeters would be huge for many ore deposits. Okay.
Would be huge for what we've got.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what we've got yet. We've got very little. We got very little bedrock exposed. We have quartz laying on surface and in dumps. We have gold rock. We have gold, fine gold, in dumps and such. SDC 2300. Which is the SDC 2300? Is that a Mine Lab? What's the brand name on that? Cutthroat? Mine Lab? Okay. I say there's a couple of detectors out there. Again, right now, money, if anyone wants to give us their old one, okay, or if you want to trade for I think it's a Mine Lab 5000, we could make that happen. The 5000 is just too complicated to use. Okay, but my brother bought one years ago. I've got it, but it's way too much hassle to use. It's a very good detector, but it's kind of specialized for certain operations under certain conditions, as opposed to more general purpose one. Okay. So if someone wants to offer me a swap, we'll see what we can do. But I say we're finding.
You were also going to ask if anybody had any input on ultrasonic cleaners,
Oh,
like the ones at Harbor Frost.
okay. Also, he was wondering how well do ultrasonic cleaners work on cleaning up stuff like that. That wouldn't, that's not going to tumble worth a darn. But, would something like an ultrasonic cleaner from Harbor Freight make that all pretty without too much effort if you had the right medium? Jean-Francois says they're hit and miss. Honey Bunny says, it should work. Jim says they work okay. So, hard to tell. So, depending on the base material, make sure you get an appropriate capacity. Somewhere to let it run. You don't have to hear it. Okay. So anyhow, this is a very interesting area we want to do some work on. We were hoping to go back there this weekend. Unfortunately, Dave Vander Wall just rained on our parade. Yeah, he's correct though. A couple days ago, it was showing cloudy this weekend. Right now, it's showing rainy this weekend. It's tough enough when it's just wet soil. When it's rainy and pretty cold, let's see, what was I'm guessing in the 70s. Let's see. 48 for a high, 52 for a high. Yeah, that would be pretty miserable. And now it's saying Monday is going to be rainy. Also. Anyhow. Oh, I don't know. We've had to repair it twice so far. Again, this particular area here is so thin. I can easily trench a foot in a matter of minutes. Um, if it's, you know, close to the surface, shouldn't be a problem. Hello, Dmitry. It's the best way for you to extract gold out of hard rock on the mining site. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, or haven't heard from you in a while, Dmitry. On the mining site, generally some kind of gravity separation. You if it was hard rock, you're going to need to crush it to some extent, and then use some kind of separation that uses the density differences, sluicing, tabling, panning, uh, jigs. There's a number of different things that rely on the whole, that. No, I can't trench the whole thing, but I'm not allowed to just scrape everything down to bedrock either. It's National Forest Service land. If I use motorized earth moving equipment, I got an issue. But anyhow, so, okay, Dimitri. Um, Amalgamation, in my opinion, is pretty much outdated now. You can do just as good without the mercury in almost all circumstances. Okay. Can't you affect good dry separation as wet separation? I'll deal with that here at the same time, Jean Francois. The problem with amalgamation is, of course, in many cases it's illegal. In all cases, it's toxic. From a practical standpoint, it also has some issues. There's some surface chemistry, there's surface tension, there's a number of different things involved with amalgamation that limit what it can actually do. When you're dealing with a gravity separation, where you're using density differences, you should be able to recover pretty high recoveries down to 300 to 500 mesh gold. Okay. And as such, depending upon your rock, that may be all you need. With hard rock, quite often, you have a fairly substantial fraction of the gold in the less than 300 to 500 mesh range. And now you get into the leaching. The advantage of leaching is the smaller the gold, the faster it leaches, as opposed to a gravity separation where the smaller the gold, the harder it is to get it to work. In our Montana B rock, roughly 75% of the gold doesn't even settle in water. It just sits there for over a minute, I've never heard of anyone using a low temperature alloy to amalgamate with. You can use oils and greases will grab the gold particles. It will tend to stick to them. You can use flotation. If you want the gold to do something different, you can use the proper chemicals, pine oil and a xanthanate and air, and get the gold to float to the top. There's ways you can do that, and they're very reliable. It's well understood technology. No, not flocculants. That clears stuff up. Hey, Tricky. And so there's a lot of different ways. Again, this is why, to me, mercury, I don't know of any niche currently where mercury does a significantly better job than something else
that's safer or easier. Okay. So that's why I wouldn't worry about mercury. Okay. I just don't think it's that terribly useful. Gravity separations have the advantage of being extraordinarily simple to only moderately complicated. Currently, we're experimenting with a new kind of sluice mat that is recovering. Yeah, Jean-Francois, that's why I'm reluctant. They still do a lot of amalgamation in South America too, Dimitri. Say the reason you like to go to leaching is to get the really fine gold. Tabling works well on the coarser gold to the mid-size gold, and that's one of the ways you deal with an ore. Say right now we're working on a sluice mat that it's recovering lots of 500 mesh particles. Not sure what the I'm not sure what the recovery rate is if you built a proper sluice. We're just using a little test sluice right now. It's too short for production. And the setup is not ideal. It's not bad now, but it's not ideal. Centrifuges, jigs, tables, they can all be quite efficient at the larger to mid-size gold. And by mid-size, I'm talking down in the couple hundred to 500 mesh range. Once you get well below 500 mesh, it's pretty much leaching. You know, if it won't settle in a water column, it's hard to do gravity. I say what we're working on is a very simple concept. We don't know if it'll work properly or not, but I like to start with the simplest before I add complication. And it's just a high efficiency fine gold sluice followed. And we're sluicing it with Eco Gold X solution. So the tailings wind up having the very fine gold or some of the very fine gold in them. And that should dissolve in a matter of a couple of days. And so hopefully what we'll do is we'll crush it, we'll sluice it, we'll dump the tailings onto the pad, we'll let that solution work through the pad, collect it, run it through the resin, recirculate that, and so it's like that. Yes, they do build centrifuges. Absolutely. In the case of gold with arsenopyrite, your problem is if you sold the concentrates to someone, they're going to charge you a heck of a lot. Right now, it's just the Chinese. They're the only people I know that are smelting arsenopyrites. But you could also theoretically leach some of the gold out of the arsenopyrite. You want to be careful that your leaching solution doesn't just liberate a lot of soluble arsenic and become a lot more dangerous than the solution was originally. Are there specific handling particulars for handling arsenopyrites? One, dust protection. Okay. I'm not sure if you need really good skin protection or not. Not certain. Someone here will know. Okay. But I do know you need to avoid the inhalation. And can you fire assay arsenopyrite without killing your lungs? Yes, you need good extraction.
you know. And Chris is right about that too. Once you make a concentrate, do what you get what gold you can using gravity, and uh, go from there. Well, honey bunny, arsenic used to be used in cosmetics. Little one, do you know, does the arsenic get absorbed by lead during the cupellation? I presume it may get absorbed by the cupel during cupellation.
Yes, I do believe that it either gets absorbed by the lead or by the cupel. But bear in mind, there are actually arsenic lead compounds out there. I think lead arsenate's one of them.
No disagreement, honey bunny. You need, Chris says you need pretty much full PPE if you're milling arsenal pyrite. No disagreement. So if I had a rich arsenal pyrite ore, I would see about making, first of all, a gravity concentrate or a flotation concentrate, trying to get the easily recoverable gold out of it, and then seeing if I could ship it to a smelter to go from there. Okay. And see what it is. No chance to smelt it. Chinese accept under 0.5%. I presume that's 0.5% arsenic officially. And yeah, when you're crushing and grinding and stuff, you'd want to be doing it all wet to keep the dust down. Absolutely. Of course, if you were using, say you were going for a silver and galena, you'd want to do essentially the same thing. That lead's some pretty nasty stuff. So you want to keep that dust way down. You'd want to wear PPE. You'd want to avoid skin contact. These sort of things. Say all these heavy metals are bad news. So that's kind of what I look at to start with. Do stuff on a laboratory scale first. Okay, there's a possibility. Again, laboratory scale. Chris has got one there. Around here, there are certain places where the fish have higher mercury contents than others. We just avoid those places. Yeah, so there's all kinds of tricks you can play if it's good enough. I would imagine there's probably a chemistry that would do that, Dimitri. You'd be surprised how many different things can dissolve gold. But as to what they are in specific, I do not know. The trick would be to get something that, oh yeah, gold is intimately bound in arsenopyrite, Jean-Francois, often at very high grades, multi-ounce to the ton. Not anywhere close to all of it. If you fine crushed it and did a gravity separation or a flotation, you could probably get a significant amount, but how much would depend on the ore. And there's either chemical or smelting. They used to just put it in the smelter. And essentially that's chemistry. It's pyrochemistry, but it's still chemistry. Don't know, haven't tried, Jean-Francois. It's an excellent question.
What?
Can you eco gold X arsenopyrite ore? Don't know. Haven't had any to test on.
Yeah, would love to find out.
Yeah,
Because
And-
that would solve a big problem for a whole lot of people.
Yeah. And you can roast sulfur away from, like if you had iron pyrite with gold in it, you can roast it fairly safely. But arsenal pyrite, different story. That's a cumulative toxin, just not an acute, chemical assault. The sulfur dioxide is nasty stuff, but it doesn't sneak up on you after years of exposure. So, as I say, it's one of those things that, since I haven't had occasion to deal with it, I really haven't studied it very much.
Well, I'll tell you, if you could actually, if the Eco Goldex would work on arsenal pyrite, that would be game changing for a lot of people.
It might very well. Again, I don't know. I know we've got a gentleman here that has a mine in an area in Oregon that has some arsenal pyrite stuff. We may wind up yeah. Needs a 5-gallon cowboy hat. I don't know about that. I don't know. So, as I say, if you got an arsenal pyrite ore, Dimitri, I would also check with some colleges or universities. I know the Center for Advanced Material Processing here in Butte would likely know something about that, and they might very well be able to send you, one or two leaps get you to someone who is actually highly knowledgeable about that, but I don't know. So that would be something I would suggest, Dimitri. It doesn't hurt to ask, possibly, Chris. Again, I've never really studied it very much. What's a gallon? It's an archaic unit of measurement used by the people who landed on the moon in years past. Where's my water? There it is. But how did that lead mine work out, Dimitri? You still working there? Are you moving on from that one? Everything work out okay? Oh. I think Honey Bunny, for whatever reason, gets to hear my voice a lot quicker than other people because she responds so much faster.
Either that or she types 90 words a minute.
No, not even that. I mean, even if it's short stuff, other people. No. Did we land on the moon? Yeah, I'm pretty convinced we did. There's a number of reasons, not the least of which it's really hard to fake dust falling at 32 feet per second squared if you're not in a vacuum. Well, actually, it's not even 30 feet. It's at a weird number, whatever it is on the moon. It's a different than on the Earth. So you have to be in a different gravity field in a vacuum to make that happen. They also left a retro reflector or two up there that scientists here on Earth were shooting lasers at to measure distances and stuff. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure we got there. Okay. There's a lot of other things I'm not too sure about the government. That one I'm pretty confident about. I mean, it's hard to maintain a secret with 20,000 people in on the joke, you know? Dimitri, are you still here? Might have lost signal. I mean, it's not like YouTube ever screws up. Huh? No, she just responds quickly. Okay, let's do a test here. Okay, honey bunny, don't want you to do anything right now, but I want to make sure you're queued up on this one here. And let's go. Jean-Francois is the other person right now. And what I'm going to do is in a minute, I'm going to say now, and then both of you type now, just NOW when I say that, so that we can see how fast the response times are. Okay, let me get my stoppy-watchy thingy going here. Stopwatch, that would be the thingy. Okay, so on your mark, get set, now. Honey Bunny and Jean-Francois both type in the word now. Okay, you were 6 seconds. Honey Bunny was right after Brian Smith, right after that. You were about 12 seconds, Brian. And this is going to be interesting. Let's just stop this. Let's redo this. Oh, and let's leave it open to everybody. Okay? You pre-type the word. That's fine. Everyone can pre-type right now. So did you pretty much just go shallow at that point? Did it work out well? Everyone happy? Okay. Everyone have the word now. Dimitri, we're doing a test. When I say the word now, everybody just type in the word now. You can pre-type it and be ready to hit enter too. Okay. Is everybody ready? Let's see. Starting the stopwatch now. Mr. Virtue, 6 seconds. Jean-Francois, Cutthroat, Honey Bunny, Jeff Bybee, man, everyone's moving pretty quick. Only 15 seconds. Tricky Dicky was at 18. Patrick Jones, 20. And still waiting for Dimitri. But yeah, see, that was funny. And Chris, 32 seconds. Red Wing Mine, 36 seconds. See how variable that is? Still waiting for Dimitri. But that's what it's highly variable depending on who it is. Yeah, but as fast as you get, it doesn't matter. John, that was 58 seconds. No, I'm just talking the pure. I don't think you type a whole lot faster than. Let's see, Montreal. So it seems the main mineralization corresponds to silver, copper sulfide, and copper sulfide, and there is free gold. Okay. So that sounds pretty good, Dimitri. Are you able to yeah. Dimitri just said now almost 2 minutes later. See what I mean? Dimitri, Jean-Francois was wondering what concentration of galena makes it economical to display. Assuming that's just lead sulfide instead of with silver. I mean, if it had 200 ounces to the ton silver, it wouldn't matter too much. But that's sometimes I'll ask a question, I get an instant answer. Other times I ask a question and it's like 2 minutes later, somebody finally answers. So it makes it very unpredictable, very, very difficult to figure out. Now again. So no, I say 2 minutes is not because you can't type now quickly. So, yeah, Dimitri was in South America working on a galena mine. There you go, Dimitri. What concentration of galena do you need to make it profitable if all your mining is the lead, if there's no silver or any other co-products? Honey Bunny was Jean-Francois was asking. Obviously, this would have to be wide enough and this and that and the other, but you're not going to chase a little vein. But assuming a decent sized vein, 3 or 4 feet at least, good continuity. Exactly, John. That's why it gets very confusing at times. You take care, Tricky. Okay, there you go, Jean-Francois. 5% lead for profitability. Okay. I was wondering about that one, Honey Bunny. I'm going to need to take a break here quickly. 5% is amazingly low. 5% is quite high. Mental telepathy. Is there any other kind? Little one, I'm going to need to take a break here.
All right.
Are you going to do tinfoil hat tonight?
No, I gave a different report today.
Depends on how big everything is, but to a certain extent, yes, Dimitri. But I think you could probably do more precise with flotation.
Hello. He will be back very shortly. Yeah. Anyway, guys, it's been a pretty interesting time for me. So, at least I'm getting to do really cool things. And with any luck, I will get to do even more cool things this coming winter. And we did go to Costco today. In case anybody's curious and has a Costco membership, apparently they got some brand of men's like 5-pocket pants on sale, work type pants. They're like $13 a pair, limit 10 pairs. So if they're still on sale when the Social Security check comes in, we're going to go see if we can find some that will fit that yo-yo, because that's a darn good price, you know? And I got a 4-pound bag of Tyson brand, of all things, breakfast pork sausage, the little frozen pork sausage patties, to make egg witches with, they're on sale for $10.99 for a 4-pound bag of sausage patties. You know, the little frozen sausage patties. I was like, wow. You know, it was pretty darn good sale. Hi, Mr. Virtue. Yeah, I know, honey bunny. Tyson's is very much made in China. Most of our food is pretty much made in China. I mean, bear in mind, Smithfield was bought out by China. So like 3/4 of our pork supply is owned by the Panda Patrol. Go figure. I wouldn't have bought them either, honey bunny, if it wasn't such a great sale, because it's going to cut the cost of my egg witches by like half or more. And, you know, when you're poor and you like egg witches, this is a good thing, you know? Yeah, the Costco in Helena, Jeff. We actually have one, which is not entirely surprising, but yeah, I was like, wow, you know, $10.99 for 4 pounds of pork sausage patties, frozen. And he got a 16-ounce bottle of vanilla for $11.99. So that was like, wow. That was good too. Anyway, I'll give you guys back to him. Tinfoil hat next week. I did science type stuff this week.
Yeah, Dimitri, if you have free gold and galena, you should be able to get a reasonable separation. It depends on how tightly the gold is bound, and is it encapsulated in the galena or whatever. It's easy to do that kind of test with a simple gold pan. That's one of the nice things. A gold pan allows you to simulate a gravity separation process to a great extent. It may not be an exact analog, but it'll allow you to say, okay, will the gravity separation work or not? That sort of thing, like with that Montana bee. Yeah, it just didn't work. I actually have no idea, Jean-Francois. Little one,
What?
What's the flux for a typical galena gold mixture? Any idea? Jean-Francois says, I guess you won't need to add lead if you add iron to scavenge the sulfur.
Well, you might still have to add some lead. It depends on how much galena we're talking about here, because it comes down to how much lead you'd get out of it as a collector metal. I would most likely start with a standard 4 parts silica to 3 parts borax. The difference would be you'd want to do a reduction potential assay first to see how much lead you might have to add to it to get everything to come out. And you shouldn't have too corrosive a flux if you're dealing with galena to begin with. So you can probably get away with about 4 times the size of your charge in soda ash.
Well, wouldn't you need to make more of an oxidizing flux to deal with the galena, like maybe potassium nitrate or something?
Yeah, I would probably put a 1/2 gram of niter in there.
You know. Yeah, because you're trying to convert the sulfur to sulfur dioxide without turning the lead to lead oxide. So you might.
Yeah, I would
Balance could be
probably
fun.
balance it with about 1/4 gram to, depending on the size, a 1/2 gram of potassium nitrate.
Well, let's see. If you
Pro borax. No, I haven't.
if you were to use potassium nitrate and charcoal with enough galena, Could you make gunpowder?
Well,
Or something
Honey
similar?
Bunny, if I had the material to work with, if somebody gave me a material like that, I would try it both ways. I would be doing my initial testing. One of them would have the iron in there.
I'm not familiar with that particular phrase, Dimitri. Counterflow on the short rib. But I say, theoretically, if you've got free gold, you should be able to get some kind of an extraction, if it's not too fine, using some kind of gravity technique. But I mean, what size gold particles do you have? I mean, that's always the big variable there, is the size of part. If you're dealing with a galena, if it's associated with the sulfides, it may be very small. It may be just kind of next to the sulfides from a different event too. Yeah, I agree. It sounds like a shaker table, but I'm not sure what he means by counterflow on the short rib. Sounds like a boxing term almost. I'm sure if you were doing it on a commercial scale, like he is, you'd use it. The smelter would know how to do all that stuff routinely. Um, so I'm not familiar with that precise process. Um, I know that when they are roasting the copper sulfide concentrates in Arizona, they use an enriched oxygen process so that they create enough sulfur dioxide. It's rich enough in the flue gas to easily convert it to sulfuric acid. And like the Hayden smelter made 6,000 tons of sulfuric acid a day. When you say 15 to 13 MK electrum, what do you mean by MK? Okay, so it's a different event. Okay. They also save a lot of money because they use the sulfuric acid to leach the copper oxide minerals. So they don't have to pay for it. They make their own. With sulfuric acid, the question is, what quality and concentration would somebody else need? So they would pay you big money for it. Yeah, they leach the copper with dilute sulfuric acid, then they electro in go straight to cathodes. That's true, John. I have no idea, Jean-Francois. I know that the furnaces use about 40% oxygen in the copper smelters, but I don't know what conversion process they use to change the sulfur dioxide to sulfuric acid. So, let's see. Smelters end up paying all that big money to their shareholders, though. Well, yeah, because the shareholders are what paid for the smelter. That's how it works. They're the owners.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. If you want to,
Good return on investment.
you know, if you want to get a big pile of money together, you gotta offer somebody a bigger pile of money at the end if it works. Yeah.
I mean, good grief.
Kermode metals. What is Kermode metals? Oh, I think I see what you're saying. There's a lot of games you can play with that, but I'm not specifically sure what you'd. I mean, I would kind of drop down the highest concentrate line a little bit and see if I could get the gold to continue on where the highest level of the sulfides was just barely below it and make a split there. But I say you should be able to do something. Kermode Resources, huh? Oh, I don't know. What do they do here? Kermode Resources, Victoria, BC, zinc, copper, lead, silver, gold, massive sulfide. Okay. Yep. That can happen. Anyhow, any other questions at this point? Getting a little tired here without even doing her tinfoil hat report.
I still do tinfoil hats next week. This week I did science.
I know you did science. You learn how to do both. What the heck is that?
Oh, you're going to be like that now, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Wow. Something there I need to deal with. Oh, microns? Okay, MK. Okay. 10 to 30 microns. That's pretty small. Let's see. Microns, 10 to 30. You're in 400 to 500 mesh range. Yeah, that should be. You should be able to get a fair amount of material there. Sometimes it's good to leave a little bit in to sweeten the pot for the smelter. I don't know if that's a skin tag or a zit. I don't remember seeing that there a couple days ago.
I will check it out when you get off your live stream.
I think that may be a zit.
I will check it out when you get off your live stream. Let's take it in.
But I want to. I've seen it.
No.
Oh yeah, there's the whole electric car baloney is not working. I mean, where are we going to get the power? You know, the grid's already overloaded.
It's not green.
If they were really serious, we'd be building nuclear power plants hand over fist.
EVs are not green. EVs are rolling toxic waste.
Yep. Yeah,
Period.
those batteries are kind of interesting. Well, years ago, I read a reasonable argument that, while fossil fuels are a nice interim thing, we really need to go mainly nuclear because sooner or later we're going to run out of fossil fuels and then make a very good chemical feedstock. I'm pretty close to that already, Jean-Francois. Canned rocket fuel in a box. Yeah, that pretty well describes a lithium ion battery. Possibly. I mean, we got to actually do it though. And with the government refusing to get along with it, without a certain regulatory cooperation, it's going to be pretty hard to do. You know. Yeah, but then you gotta, unless you come up with cellulosic ethanol, can you make it from cellulose, honey bunny? Yeah, thorium reactors are inherently much safer than uranium
They're working
reactors.
on salt reactors over there.
And thorium is also more plentiful than uranium. I think basically you got to throw neutrons at it to make it work, though, which is why it can't go wonko very easily on you. Well, if you can make it economically from cellulose, you could get very rich very quickly. Either that or very dead very quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of people making billions of dollars creating ethanol at very little energy increase to a significant energy decrease. Yes, what's the cost per liter, honey bunny? Oh.
Talk to the moonshiners.
Yep.
They make perfectly good.
Anyhow, I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm getting older. And
next week there will be a tinfoil hat.
And without.
And there may even be science.
Yeah, pretty much, honey bunny. So, that's what we're doing right now. And doing a lot of testing and such. But I was really, really interested in some of the observations that Eve has made in terms of that, the noise on the digging of the soils. My analysis is that the reason that it makes the scritchy sound is those quartz particles are more likely to be angular because they've been broken from the bedrock recently as opposed to old sediments, the beach sand and stuff, and that they're hard enough they can actually scratch and gouge the metal, etc. I noticed it when I was digging that quartz formation. It made a different sound. But that may be a useful tool. We'll do some research on it and see. Okay, everyone. Anyone got any last minute questions here? Oh. Oh, dearie. They can use sound for subsurface, sonics and stuff. they use it for various things, not too much, although they do use LiDAR a lot in ground control. All righty, well, I'm going to call it a night then. Pretty early, but what the heck. Oh, got a lot of work to do. Although hopefully it'll be a fairly quiet weekend, but I need to if we're getting rain coming in, I need to do some preparations, that's for sure. Thanks a lot, Dave, if you're still here. Yeah, Jean-Francois, but it's better than the alternative. So,
Next week there will be tinfoil hat and maybe science.
okay. So happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.
Good night, everybody.
Actually, Dimitri, the EVs use cobalt, which is pretty toxic. And when one of those batteries lights up, it creates some very toxic gases, things like hydrogen fluoride. It can't be put out. And there's a lot of hazards that have not been
green.
thoroughly. And then, according to Eva, who's done more research than me, it also doesn't provide a net benefit for the environment either. So, such is life. Take care, everybody. Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. Let's see, end stream.
No, I will do a tinfoil hat.